All right. We're live on YouTube, so be appropriate.
We gotta mind our manners.
That's right. Don't be telling them stories you were telling me.
Taylor is going to join us.
Yep, he'll be in just a second.
Okay. There he is. Stick his name. Stick his name and he walks in the door.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
Hey, Taylor.
Good morning, sir.
I'm doing better than I deserve, as always.
Well, that describes most of it.
Dennis, how you, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. Hope you are.
You haven't called a meeting together yet. have You haven't called anything to order, have you?
No.
Okay.
I was waiting for you to come.
Okay.
I think Jackie Booker is trying to join us.
Okay.
Yep, she's trying to.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'll give them one to find out what the heck is going on.
Do you need to do something to bring Jackie in?
I think she's trying to get in.
She's only just phone only.
Marty, can you hear me?
I can.
Very good. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. And Mr. Llewellyn, could I ask you to do the invocation?
Be glad to. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for coming before you and conduct your business in Amelia County. Lord, we thank you so much for giving us such a beautiful place to live and work. Lord, we thank you again for the safety of this committee and government of this county as we go through and make decisions in your name. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Well, I think the first thing on the agenda today is organizational appointments.
I'm gonna interrupt you. If you're not speaking, can you mute on your end? We're getting a lot of feedback.
Cleared it up.
Thank you.
Okay, first thing on the agenda is election of chairman for 2021. And I guess the floor is now open.
Turn it over to me to do that for you?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we need a chairman for the Amelia County EDA for the calendar year of 2021. The floor is open for motions.
I make a motion that we keep Luther as our chairman.
Okay, you've heard Mr. Townsend's motion, electing Luther Wooten for another term. Any other nominations? Any discussion? All right, if not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Wooten, and the meeting is turned back over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not certain that was a pat on the back, but thank you all anyway. Okay, now we are open for election of vice chairman 2021. Currently, our vice chairman is Jackie Booker, and floor is open for nominations.
Well, I'll make a motion that Jackie Booker is be our vice chairman.
Any other discussion or nominations? Those in favor of Jackie Baker staying the vice chairman, let it be known by the sound of aye. Thank you, Marty.
I was muted on the last one. I couldn't get unmuted, but I voted aye anyway.
Okay, so Jackie Booker has been reelected as the vice chairman. And now we need to discuss the establishment of meeting dates, times, and location.
Mr. Chairman, for the last, as long as I can remember, actually, the meetings have been scheduled for the second Tuesday in the month at 10 a.m. at this location here. And of course, since springtime, there's also been a virtual component as well. So that's what you're working under right now. I will add, I'm not sure your bylaws couldn't be tweaked a tad bit to make the virtual part part of your normal operations. I guess we're still operating under the emergency rules that were put in place almost a year ago now.
Well, yeah, we can entertain that to add that to our bylaws as far as our virtual meetings. Do we have any discussion as far as changing?
I'd like to recommend that we leave the time and place the same as we have it and add the virtual part to it that way if somebody's traveling, they'll be considered part of the quorum if you check in properly. Okay.
Okay, the motion's been made. Y'all heard the motion. Anyone second that motion?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we leave the meeting dates, times, and location the same, and that we add to the bylaws the fact that we have virtual meetings. All those in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sound. And that motion is carried.
Mr. Chairman, while you're on that topic, may I speak?
Certainly.
The Board of Supervisors plans to have a topic on our meeting next week to request that the EDA adjust bylaws further to specify the long-standing practice that its members be residents of Amelia County. And so we're going to make that request of the EDA. You're already amending bylaws today. You may want to just consider that at this point. Otherwise, the board will ask that on your agenda for discussion.
Okay, I've personally been thinking about that particular situation. And I'm thinking if a person is a resident of Amelia when they're appointed, if they move out of Amelia but still has business or property in Amelia, I would think they would still be eligible to be on the board myself. If they moved out of Amelia and no longer had any ties with Amelia, then yeah, I could see not being eligible. But as long as there's ties to Amelia as far as a business/property, I would think they would still be eligible. That's my personal opinion on that discussion, on that topic. Floor is open for opinion and discussion.
Good news, so I can be on the IDA whenever.
Exactly.
I can go along with the business part. I can't say that I go along with just having property in Amelia. Because I think if you have a business, you will have more interest in what's going on.
Oh, that's a good point.
Than if you just own a lot or something somewhere.
That's a good point. That's a reason for the discussion.
That's
Absolutely.
the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
Your bylaws don't address the topic at all, just for awareness. We looked it up this week. It can be, you can have someone be a member from Florida who never lived in Virginia.
Well, I agree that we don't want that.
I don't think that would
But
happen because I don't think the Board of Supervisors would choose someone to that.
Right, right. And I think any time that a person's chosen, at the time they are residents, and that's the reason I added, though, if they happen to move later on but still have business interest in Amelia, then I think they'd still be qualified to serve. You have an opinion, Mr. Harvey?
How about we get the language that's proposed and bring it to the next meeting, give everybody a chance to think about things. I guess there are two issues, talking about putting an official virtual language into the bylaws as well as the residency. Then don't have to make a snap decision today.
I agree. Is that okay with everybody else? Okay. Very good. Thank you, Taylor. Okay, I think now we're moving to the approval of minutes. Everybody might need a second or two to go over them. Or 3 or 4. This is the meeting held on December the 8th, since we didn't have a meeting last month. Okay, do we have any corrections to the minutes or any discussion? Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes as they stand?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes as read.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that the minutes be approved as written. Those in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sound.
Aye.
Marty? Okay,
Aye.
thank you, Marty. Thank you. Okay, minutes are approved as read, and now we come to Mr. Harvey and the treasurer's report.
All right, the Amelia County EDA has a total of $595,695.83 in the bank, or had it on the 4th. To my knowledge, nothing else has been written out of that. Under economic development, there's a remaining unencumbered balance of $142,316.04. Looks like $1,427 was paid out last month. I do not have those invoices on the top of my head. Looks like $600 was professional services. If I had to guess, it would be related to engineering in the park, but I can get that information if anybody would like it. GBC renovations, repairs and maintenance. I'll just remind everybody that we still own the building. So if there's something structural related, we take care of that per the lease. And if it's operations or something to do with the machinery, that would be on the tenant. And I think we had some electrical upgrades that we were working on. So, but I can get those for everybody if they would like to see it.
Any discussion on the treasurer's report? Do I hear a motion that we approve the treasurer's report as read?
I make a motion to approve the treasurer's report as read. A second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we approve the treasurer's report as read. Those in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
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 Thank you, Marty. Motion is carried.
Okay.
And now we come to old business. And I think the first thing on the agenda is Holly Steele.
Hey, first thing, I went over this with some of you all last week, but I wanted to give you some updates on community development and things we're pushing through the planning commission. So I'm going to touch on those and then I'll circle back and explain how they're going to impact the industrial park. So the first thing, at the January 25th planning commission meeting, we took 2 new text amendments. That's to allow abattoirs, which are slaughterhouses, in areas besides industrial. So to allow them in rural areas of the county, such as A5 and RP5. That passed unanimously in the planning commission and will be going to the board of supervisors next week for approval or denial. The next thing is to allow subdivisions in all business and industrial zoned properties. Currently, if you own an industrial or business property, it cannot be subdivided, period. As you can imagine, that has created a bit of issue with some potential projects coming to the industrial park. So we're trying to put that in the ordinance to allow areas like the industrial park to be further subdivided into smaller lots. So that also passed the planning commission and will be going to the board next week for approval or denial. Coming up this month, February 22nd, to the planning commission, there are 2 additional text amendments, and they are for the lot size. So right now in industrial, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. We are recommending it be decreased to 10,000 square feet. Because 1 acre in an industrial area is pretty steep. And you want to prevent areas having to be rezoned and further developed because there's no more space. So it makes more sense to decrease the size of what you have and fill in density there. So that's going to the planning commission this month. And the last one are the setbacks. Right now, the setbacks in industrial are 100 feet from any road. We are recommending 75 feet off of all arterial roads, which is Chula Road, 360, 153, just the major roads you would think of in the county, and 25 feet otherwise. So in the industrial park, there would be a 25-foot setback from Old River and Kendall Abbott and roads like that. So those are the things we have going on our end. And this relates to the potential project we have going on in the industrial park, because it allows them to create the lots they are proposing and meet the design standards they're hoping to get. They were running into some issues meeting the setbacks the way they currently are. So these text amendments will help them work with what their vision is there. So I know that was a lot, but if y'all have any questions, happy to take them.
Any discussion, questions?
I think what's been proposed is a good way to do it. Especially on the setbacks, because that's wasted space.
I agree with that personally. Yeah. Yeah, my personal opinion, that's a positive move. Any other discussion in that area? Okay. Is that all you've got for us, Holly? Okay. Next is the master plan for IDA park. Is that you, Mr. Harvey?
Holly touched on most that can be talked in the, out in the open. Obviously, this refers to, aspect that, folks have been working with, and we can either move this to the end of the meeting and go into a closed session and talk things, or we're glad to do it outside of the meeting to bring folks up to speed. There have been no real changes in the last week. Things have been progressing as planned. So if you want to push this to the end of the meeting, if you need we could go into closed session and talk details, answer questions that anybody might have.
Let's do that.
Okay?
Let's push it. All right. Now we come to the.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is Rethink Main Street, and I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to get Jeff right. I think it's Sapersky. He is here with us virtually. Came to us.
Yeah, it's you actually did a pretty good job with it. It's kind of a doozy. Jeff Sapersky. My mom always said like a sip from a cup. So I appreciate you all having me here this morning and just letting me start a quick conversation. And I run Rethink Main Street. Go ahead.
We've got some real static that's coming through. So if anybody is not going to be speaking, if they could mute their microphones again, I think that'd help a lot. That's a lot better. Maybe not.
There's no feedback when it comes from me, is there?
I don't know where it's coming from, but it's a lot.
Well, if it's all, I'll go ahead and start and you just stop me if it becomes an issue. Yeah, so my name's Jeff Sapersky. I own and run Rethink Main Street. And if it's all right with you, can you see if I pull up, if I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. This.
He has permission.
And can you all see that?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, sorry about that.
Do we need to turn it over to him, Holly?
No, he has permission.
Okay. You got
There
it.
we go. Got it? Great. I'll just introduce myself. Let's get this full screen here. There we go. So I own and run Rethink Main Street. I live right up the road here in Richmond. I'm originally from the Northern Neck, and really what I work on and specialize in is, I guess the best term is downtown redevelopment partner and consultant. And I really like to specialize and focus on small town commercial cores. So I've focused on small town areas and particularly kind of the rebranding, specializing and infusing new energy into these commercial hearts of our communities. And in addition, especially in this 21st century world in which we live, COVID especially, I want to expand the role that they play as live, work, play, economic and cultural hubs, especially as really good, strong counterpoints to kind of suburban sprawl that especially you all are seeing right up the road in Midlothian. I think there's a great counterbalance that you all can play in this. I wanted to start, there were just a couple of questions. It's rhetorical for right now, but just in regards to the type of town and community you want Amelia, and specifically Amelia Courthouse, what you want that to continue to grow and be. It's if you took a picture of your street at midday, does the picture show more cars than people or more people than cars? If there is let's say a revolution, or let's do something a little bit lighter. If if you won the Super Bowl or the state football championship, if that were to happen at home, would people instinctively know where to gather and congregate? And where's the center of that community? Imagine your favorite drag right there in the courthouse exists. I imagine it's one of those right there around the square. If that didn't exist, would you be able to build it today? And if you have an owner of one of the single family homes, particularly those in town, would they be able to get permission to add a small incremental additional rental unit on their property without much hassle? And finally, if your largest employer or one of your largest employers left town, how would it survive? And so that leads, and finally, do you have opportunities for someone to live more or less, if not all, at least most of their daily life within the town? Could they theoretically walk to a job? Could they walk to home? Would they be able to walk to a restaurant, and are those restaurants and just experiences being provided there? And what can we do to facilitate that? So right now, obviously, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but Richmond and, all the growth happening right up 360, it's definitely a kind of a one size fits all development pattern. And I think that there's a lot of reasons why people don't want development because it normally looks like this, and it ruins the rural landscape and the rural character. I say that as someone, I grew up in the Northern Neck, and so I grew up in town in a small community, much like Amelia, and so I understand the role that preserving that type of community while also facilitating growth in a way that adds to it and doesn't detract from it, why that's important. So with this type of development pattern, you get all your eggs in one basket. Really, it's a short-term cash infusion. And then due to the lack that you can't really adapt and grow these developments over time, they're built to their finished state. And then at best, they maintain their value. The long-term liability is largely due to infrastructure. It becomes more and more difficult to pay for them as time goes on. So there's this illusion of wealth at the beginning, but it's worth considering that this type of development pattern really can cause some big issues in the long run. It is driving heavy, and this is not an anti-car thing at all. It's just what type of community you get the type of community you design. And then being out in a rural area, you do need to be able to find and hone and develop those spaces that facilitate people brushing shoulders with neighbors and outside of their vehicles, walking down the street. That's how communities are formed. And what places do that? And I would argue that Amelia Courthouse is the next closest and best urban node in which you can achieve. And so, and finally, a big part of it is, and I speak to this as someone who's guilty of it myself, is kind of young people and the brain drain from rural areas. I think the COVID situation has recalibrated a little bit of this, but I mean, most people, if they're able, they'll oftentimes leave home, go to a larger community or a city because, for one, they see additional opportunities or the lack of ability to achieve what they want at home. And really, it's these larger cities telling a better story about what they can achieve and how they can help an individual get there. And I don't think that needs to be the case anymore. I think that smaller communities can really play up their strengths while providing most of the opportunities and facilities that larger cities have, at least on a scale proportionate with the area. And so this is why I focus on particularly the downtown core of Amelia Courthouse. This right here is a quarter-mile a radius from the courthouse square. And I think this is where a lot of small incremental growth can occur and where you should focus on the cultural and business opportunities to keep people there and potentially attract people to a place where they're not really enjoying the urban or suburban lifestyle. So this is the goal. I see a bustling downtown Amelia Courthouse with numerous commercial and residential opportunities. The ability for at least a certain number of people to walk to restaurants and to their jobs, people able to age in place, smaller places that are ideal for younger people. It's kind of from your young end to retirement, you'd be able to float around into a couple of different places, but always remain in this community. And in particular, it's emphasizing small scale development, which is not the kind that you're seeing up at these huge suburban developments, particularly up 360. I want to emphasize that these are small, small houses, small accessory dwelling units, possibly some duplexes, things like that to just increase the number of people and foot traffic for the businesses downtown. And that type of development doesn't make the place worse as it's added, it improves it. And so the ideal thing would be to have more people remain in Amelia after high school or college, see it as a place to continue to develop their lives. And that's what I want. It's good to go after big fish from out of town, but it's really an economic gardening mentality of keeping who you have and providing the ability to nurture that growth, your homegrown growth. And then, so I see that as a thing of economic resiliency. It's kind of 51 person jobs as opposed to one 50-person job. It makes you more stable, able to weather ups and downs, and it's not all your eggs in one basket. And I think there's a real opportunity to, you've all done a great job in telling Amelia's story and continuing to do that as an effective counterweight to needing to move to Richmond or Northern Virginia, et cetera. And so how we get there, there's a couple of things that I like to focus on when I'm working with these communities is making little bets. I really appreciate the small, low level, potentially temporary things that are just urban design improvements, programming, kind of pop up things to get people there and a buzz floating around the community. Doing it well and not necessarily fast. Doing it fast, oftentimes some things can be done in a rash way. But if you go slowly, it's not necessarily as fun, but you ultimately get a better result. I heard someone say this once, it's being a quote good party as opposed to a bad party. A good party is where when someone comes to the party or moves there, they bring their own dish, they bring their own beer, etc. The party becomes better as a result. So each additional person that comes makes it a better situation as opposed to the other way. There's a lot to be said for chaotic but smart versus orderly and dumb. You could potentially say that these suburban tracks are very orderly, but they only factor in one or two variables as opposed to, I would argue, kind of the free market of most people in a community being able to do what lifts their own boat in a way that creates a better overall situation, although it's not as planned from a top-down level. And then finally, I think it's as simple as designing for people. In Amelia, if you build it for them, I see the potential there to get it done. And if people are able to have the option to live more of their life there in the town core, they will. There's certainly a market for it, and I can attest to that. And then really it's making sure that with the long-term liabilities, focusing on this makes good dollars and cents from that perspective as well. Just sewer pipes are expensive. I know all of you know that. And so maximizing your return on existing investments, which you would find in the core of Amelia, it's a better long-term run as well. So those are kind of that's my emphasis as we go through it. And so I like to focus on kind of tactical retrofits, things that are cheap, that are easy to do and easy and quick to do. Get some quick wins. You get some buzz around what's going on in the community. Focusing on some types of the economic gardening principles of how do you curate homegrown businesses, and also potentially attract more just due to the strength of it. Different programming opportunities in the courthouse. I know obviously the farmers markets and things like that, but there's a lot of unique examples out there that I think could potentially work well in Amelia to just bring the community together kind of as often as possible and really curate that. And then really one of the things that I like to do is, as best I can, be a connector. You all know the people, but there's a lot of different potential projects that can happen if we're just able to partner with potential corporate or nonprofit partners in the community, along with individuals. I think that there's a lot of potential there to get stuff off the ground. And then finally, I don't think it's a one size fits all. I want to be able to tailor it to the needs of what you all want, and you all know that better than anybody. And so I just want to be able to potentially connect some dots if I can, and hit the ground running and help get these projects off the ground for you. And so just simple tactical examples of what's going on here, that they don't need to cost an arm and a leg, that improve the vitality in town. And really, and so I'm getting close to the end, but just a little bit of my background. I've gone through the ECU graduate program in real estate and urban land development. During that time, we worked directly with the city of Hopewell on a study in localized food access. A background in transportation policy and planning, real estate investment analysis. I spent a lot of time in both the business school and the urban planning program there. I have over 5 years in real estate sales, development, construction, management, and there's one other one that was supposed to be in there. But I've worked at it from the private side, and particularly kind of infill development in the Churchill neighborhood. But I think that there's a lot to be said for in-town small scale development. I'm a member of the Incremental Development Alliance, which focuses on that small scale development, attending workshops and seminars in 2016 and 2018. Also been a member of Strong Towns since 2016, and I've been a contributing writer since 2020. And I'm finally a member of the Historic Richmond Foundation on their junior board, and handle it's called the Coit Club, which does programs and kind of happy hours and things at unique spaces here in the city. And so it's kind of a top to bottom thing. I understand small towns and really kind of make them good, strong places. And with my recent work, I've worked with the city of Martinsville with Jeff Sadler, who's formerly of the Virginia Main Street program, working on renderings for a revitalized alley turned into a maker space and commercial center. And then also with Innovate Fulton with Chuck Dupree, which deals with the Fulton neighborhood and eastern side of Richmond, and kind of redeveloping that corridor into maximizing what they can do in that neighborhood. And this is just an example of what I've done for Martinsville, and previously that was with Fulton. And in conclusion, I would love the opportunity to work with you all in some form or fashion. I'd love to have additional discussions about it and find out what you need. And I think that Amelia is a fantastic place, and I want to help facilitate growth in a way that it retains that. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions, anyone? Taylor? Joseph?
I'm not sure that I fully understand how you work with it. Are you usually hired by these communities you're talking about, and it's a mutual set of goals, or what's your structure for that?
And I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part of that?
I'm not clear how you work with those communities. Like, are you hired by ones like you gave an example, or what's the structure for the relationship? What would you be asking for in return?
In short, it is a consultant type relationship. It can be as long or short term as you want. I can do everything from individual write-ups on proposals to renderings to a month-long duration, a project-focused duration. it can be short to medium term in length. Really, I'm able to tailor that to whatever the scale of the work is needed. It can be an ongoing thing, but that's something that I guess you can say it's flexible, but it's not necessarily an in perpetuity thing. It can be as short or as long term as you need it.
Thank you. That answered my question.
So are you in the mode where somebody's got to have money or either be able to procure money through grants or redevelopment? Is this something that you help with?
Yeah, that's certainly something that I can help with, and I guess it depends on what it's for. One of the first things I like to actually look at before we even go the grant route is, and this is in conversing with you all and other stakeholders. It's just, how can you get it done at the most local level possible? Obviously going to Richmond is good for a lot of things, but I think that there's a good bootstrap option to at least kind of test the concept and prove the concept for whatever you're trying to do. And then if you're looking to do something more permanent down the road, then you have that in your back pocket when you do go to Richmond.
So Jeff, to follow up our earlier conversation, you do work directly with the private property owner lots of times. That is correct, right?
Yeah, that's something that I like to do. It's if whatever 123 Main Street, if the place has been vacant or underutilized, that's something that I want to reach out to those owners directly, and in an easy way, just kind of start getting everybody pulling the rope the same direction, and kind of give them a sense of what the opportunities are here and helping facilitate that, at least from a discussion standpoint, and then we go from there.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, and I think maybe we can dial down on this thing a little bit. If you want to submit some type of a proposal to the EDA where we would actually be acquiring the services, I think we could receive that, but it would be something we would have to put out on the public airwaves and make a competitive thing.
Of course.
If what you're looking for, though, is for us to make connections for you, to introduce you to folks from the Chamber of Commerce to the individual owners down there, we could do that tomorrow.
Okay. Well, I'm certainly open and interested in both. It's both sound great, honestly. It really, I'm not trying to be vague, but it's really just kind of what I would love to sit down and kind of find out what your macro level goals are. And then there's insight that I'm able to provide for possibly some different ways to achieve those goals. So, with the Chamber of Commerce, I'd love to speak with them, and, any kind of, I guess, property owners or prominent property owners that you're trying to figure out what to do with the space. I would be happy to speak with them as well.
All right, so Jeff, let's see if we can't talk at the latter part of the week, maybe, and see if we can't come up with a little bit of a plan for everybody.
That sounds great. I'll shoot you an email after this, and we'll set something up for a little bit later.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay.
That's a topic of discussion.
we will continue it with him. All right, it looks like we're in, up to the county administrator's report, which is when we would like to bring in Austin and Lee Lyles. I guess there've been conversation, especially with Austin, maybe for 6 months, I guess, when you first came in with some questions or ideas. They run operations. I'm gonna let you, I'll let them explain, but I will say that it's an existing operation. It's not a concept. It's not
Copies for everybody.
it's not a dream. And we'll just turn it over to them.
Some more, sorry. I didn't have copies for.
I have some rough draft.
We can go make copies.
I have some, I just have a scratch out on one because I was.
Give me the rough one. There you go.
Okay.
And before y'all start, is there anything proprietary in here? Because we are in the open.
No, so I did kind of like a rough draft for everybody, redacted any financial information. I didn't put all that in there. If you guys have specific questions about anything, that's something I can get you answers to. But this is kind of introductory, so you can get to know who we are, what we do, and why we'd like to come to the county. So like Mr. Harvey said, my name is Lee Lyles. It's my brother, Austin Lyles. Austin's been in business in Virginia since 2012. We did open 2 new businesses in the last couple of years, one of which was SC Auto Recycling and Direct Auto Source, which is on the sheet there in front of you with our contact information. So he's been in the car industry basically his whole life. I was in insurance first and then came over to work with him on the auto side of things. Currently, we have a salvage yard in Sussex County in Stony Creek, Virginia. We always wanted to position ourselves in Amelia County, so that's what we're attempting to do here now. Amelia County is the path of progress. We all know everything's working its way up 360, which is specifically why we'd like to be here, and in the industrial park, if you'll allow it. We had looked at some property in the industrial park, and as you can see on the map, there's 4, is it towards the backside? The 4 pieces towards the backside is what we would like to purchase. I don't know if there's a number on them or not. I guess.
It looks like portions of lot 7.
With fiber.
Yeah, the bottom.
Oh, well, yeah, the water, it would be a water basin.
Correct.
So I know you all have to put a road, and that's part of a discussion that's coming up, is putting the road in. Something that may be beneficial to you all if we do purchase all 4, is only having the road come up to the first lot. There's no cost on your end. If it only goes up to the first, we will be running all 4. We don't need road frontage on all 4. So just a little.
Not unless you need
Well, yeah.
access to this, like what you were talking about with this water basin in the back. And then you'd have to cut some sort of a road back there, I'm sure.
Right. So that would be just something to think about, or if that could potentially save you costs. Instead of having 4 individual businesses or 3 individual businesses that would all have to have road frontage. Our plan for the property would be to timber, obviously we have to cut and get the stumps out, get the property ready. We would construct an office to operate out of, and then have a separate section that's for the vehicle processing. Have fencing around the property. Obviously, this is a very nice area, very nice industrial park, and we want to keep it looking that way. We do have fencing around our current property. We have walls constructed around the current property so that people can't see where our vehicles are being processed. That's something we already have in place now. We've been working with DEQ in Sussex County and have had no issues at our current salvage yard, with our water inspection, with our county inspection, with the dealer board coming out or DMV. So currently we've had no issues, everything's run smoothly, between communications with us and the county. So that will be something that we'll work with you all, if we're allowed into the county, as far as what your guidelines are and what you require in the industrial part. So we do have a current, they call it a SWIP, the stormwater pollution plan in place, and we have to tailor it to the new property. But if you need any information on any of that, obviously feel free to ask us. There is a demand for this industry. It's continuing to grow. I didn't bring all the statistics and, make a PowerPoint about all of it, but it is an industry that's continuing to grow and even into 2025. So that's something we want to push into and continue to work towards. We would like to expand and hire more employees, hire people locally to work for us, as well as eventually we'd like to sell parts to the public and to be set up to do so. It will take us time to get there with getting the property set up for business. So that is something that we'd like to do. And everything.
No, man, that's pretty much it.
So when you say auto processing, we're stripping them, crushing them?
Mhm. Yeah, we don't, most of what comes in leaves in the same week. So when we bring them in, we set them up on the stands, drain all the fluid, take the gas tank out, remove the wheels and tires, battery, engines and everything, and then it's crushed and it's sent right back out. So we have containers as far as, containing all the fluids on a concrete pad and storing the batteries in a certain way and, everything. So we just kind of take out the valuable pieces in a vehicle and send it right back out the door.
So are you familiar with Chesterfield Auto Parts? Is this very similar to that?
They have a yard where you go in and pull your own parts off, and
You wouldn't have that?
I probably would eventually, but it's, you have to have a lot more manpower to do it. Where I'm at now, hard to find help, so that's why I don't do it right now. But eventually I will.
Speaking of help, how many employees would you anticipate in the beginning having?
In the beginning, I would probably bring at least 5 with me.
Okay. And eventually you would project
I would
How many?
say at least 10 more once I got everything. going.
once you got everything established.
And years to come after that, I would expect more, but.
Yeah, that's one of the key interests we have is
Right,
how many people will be employed by this.
right.
And we currently employ, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We currently employ 3, besides the 2 of us, obviously 3 locals in Sussex County.
Okay.
So that's what we'd like to do. Those employees will not be,
Well,
well,
some of them will come, but
but they may not, just
Yeah.
due to the travel. So we'd like to hire when we,
So that's exactly where I was going. I thought you said bring 5 people and then eventually add more people. Does this make people actually hire someone day one or?
I have people that will come, if I move up this way, I have people that will come work for me. Nobody wants to drive to Sussex to come to work,
Okay, so you think they would relocate?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And now the people I would hire are either they live in Amelia County,
especially
Chesterfield,
not the
Howard
people
County.
that are currently from Sussex County.
Yeah.
There's people here that have already said they wanted
Yeah,
to work
Okay.
for us.
but nobody wants to drive an hour, 20
Right.
minutes down there,
Totally.
nor do I.
Yeah. we don't either. Yeah.
Where are y'all based, like your home?
I live in Howard County.
Yeah, that's a long drive.
Yeah, and eventually if I can have business here, I would move, move.
Right, that was.
I know y'all are looking at the, lot setting right now, but in the event that didn't work out, about how much acreage do y'all need to run this operation?
I mean, I would say at minimum 5.
We'd like to continue to expand. That's the reason for having more acreage, because we're in this for the long haul. This isn't something we want to come in and do for 5 years and be out. This is our end game, is to be in Amelia. So if we can get it all, we'd like to.
Yeah, it would be.
So you would anticipate though, I'm sorry, I apologize, does that mean leave the Sussex location also, or you mean you would eventually move the entire operation?
Oh, everything would come in.
Everything will come here.
I would sell that yard down there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would sell that.
So long term, you'd like all of your operations to be.
Oh, yeah, I want everything to be right here, because I would place them at Lothian too. And I would move everything from there out here and have it all in one location, do it all out of one spot.
Is public water and sewer a requirement or just something we'd like to have? I don't know how y'all's operation works.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it would be nice in the long run.
Yeah, we currently have well, but
Yeah, we have well water. Yeah.
That kind of leads into my question. Why were you attracted to the industrial park rather than out in a little more rural area?
Well, I guess my first thought, was that would be the only place to have this, operation, would be in the industrial park. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't be out of the industrial park, but my first thought was.
It was the M2 zoning that was
This
required.
zoning?
That-
Okay.
That's what kind of said, this is where that is.
And like we talked, there was some other land zone into out of the industrial park, but I don't think there was a whole lot of it.
you know, we have hired a real estate agent to kind of look in over the last year, and there's not a lot of M2 to do, for our requirements.
So you're gonna be receiving and shipping mainly by truck traffic?
Yeah, I have trucks, pick up cars and bring them in, and then once they're crushed, trucks bring them out.
Okay,
And they, more of them go out at one time than they come in.
sure.
Obviously, but
Do you buy from individuals too?
yeah, I have a lot of people that I buy from, that bring me cars to the yard, and then I go out and buy a lot of cars as well. People go to people's houses or, wherever it needs to be.
So your money is made in selling the recyclable parts off of it then? That's what you said that's why you're so careful about removing things? Is that the?
Yeah. So we just take out everything valuable from the vehicle and brush the shell.
Okay.
Sell that, break everything else down.
You're selling the crushed part also, because that's, I guess, someone will want that for metal. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know scrap is bottom about dropped out of that now compared to what it was a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it went up about 2 months ago and then it's fallen off. So, but, it just you gotta play the game with the numbers, all the time.
Well, your primary money is in the resellable parts that you take off the vehicle.
Right. Yeah,
And not in the crushed metal.
right.
Of course, we'd like the crushed metal to stay up, but
Absolutely. But then there goes fuel price, when that metal goes up, fuel prices.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Which one do you really want?
exactly.
So it's kind of
I think another issue that we touched on is one of the components was selling automobiles. I don't think that's allowed in the M2 zone.
I'll have to double check, but normally those kind of uses aren't.
Okay.
As we were kind of told, as you can see, there's two business names at the top of the paper. Direct Auto Source is the used car sales, which is what we started with, which we have to have that license in order to have the salvage yard. So mostly what we do with that is wholesale vehicles. If we have vehicles that come in, we can take them to auction. So that's mostly what we do with the Direct Auto Source with the dealer license. Now I had to have that in order to get all my other licensing for salvage and for auto removal, for that kind of thing, but that is our primary reason we're having the dealership.
So then there's not necessarily people coming to you to the site, you're taking cars to auction.
For the most
For the most part.
Eventually, if it was something that would be allowed here, then I would sell to the public.
Sure.
You
Just
know,
where we're at.
rebuildable vehicles, stuff that, you know, wasn't necessarily even wrecked. You know, I get a lot of stuff that was abandoned with no keys and, you know, it turns out to be decent vehicles.
Correct. So if that, because that is something we had touched on about the M2 zone, but if that is something that is allowed, we can sell vehicles to the public. And that would be another, you know, another avenue.
How about your timing?
Well, I mean, I guess it all depends what we can figure out, you know, as far as making an offer on this land and however you get your quote for the road and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'm pretty much ready. I'm pretty much ready. I don't need to sell that place I have down there to buy this property here, so I'm, you know, it's when pretty much I need to have this in place before I sell it, you know.
So you're not in a place where one of the last operations that we dealt with, they finally came clean and said, we've got to be out of our current facility by such and such date. You're not at that.
No, and I have somebody interested in buying my yard now, and I would, in the contract, and that he hasn't even gotten it, but it will state that I have a year to operate out of that location once it's, you know, set in stone like that.
But we have not done the contract.
So and I haven't done it yet because I wanted to make sure that I would buy land here before I did that.
And then that gives us a year to get the land ready for use and get a concrete pad and, you know.
So you can do wholesale, yes,
But no retail there.
correct.
Okay.
How about parts, like Chesterfield Auto? We wanted to venture out and let people come in and take parts off. Is that something that's allowed in the M2?
It would be retail.
And there's two different ways of doing it. Obviously, there's the pick and pull version, which you're familiar with Chesterfield Auto Parts, and then there's also where people aren't allowed in the yard and we would have to pull the part.
Like a full service.
Like a full service.
We would do it all.
You know, it's retail.
Right.
It's all to the end user.
To the public, yeah.
To the public.
Now, is, from a Amelia County standpoint, would that even be appealing to having a Chesterfield Auto Parts here? Or is that something that, you know, you don't see as being a benefit to the county?
The only concern is traffic.
Right.
I don't know how much traffic we can generate.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is that would add additional traffic coming in and out if you let people come in and pull their own parts.
Right.
But that's not necessarily a killer. That would have to be evaluated, I guess.
Right.
Does this require a special exception permit?
While she's looking, none of us have talked about the auto picking before, so I don't think we have a group of opinions. Any of us want to speak for ourselves. So my concern would just be the keeping all the cars there and I'll be honest, kind of aesthetics of it. I think really, I think that's it.
And I think that's too why, when we first start, we were gonna put a privacy fence around the property. And obviously we need to be able to secure the property, one, so people don't get hurt and for, theft, safety reasons as well. But having that fence for the privacy, because the industrial park is nice. I mean, the buildings that are up are, they look really good. So if we want to keep the aesthetics, we want to keep the place looking nice, because like I said, we want to be there for a very, very long time. So
This is also on a dead end, and it's gonna be behind.
right.
Superior Walls block, right? Which you have to build on, you have to eventually do something.
Right,
So
will
it's
be
not
somewhat
really
hidden
visible.
anyway.
I agree, but I'm just being, you're being very honest, so just like, that's the concern I would have, not personally, the traffic volume wouldn't bother me.
My concern is seepage in the ground. I mean, our wellhead study guy made a point of referencing some of the examples he was showing us was where there was junkyard just outside of where the wells were. That's a concern. I don't know how close it is to our current wells, but
How do you deal with the oils and the gasoline and all that? Do you have a pit or something that go in and you pump it out, or?
You mean as far as extracting it from the vehicle?
Right.
We drain it in drains and then pump it into those big holding tanks. I think they're 300-gallon tank with the cages around them. You can move with the forklift and everything. And then once we get those full, we just have Nova Oil Services come and pump everything out.
You drain them how? You put them on lifts and drain them?
I have
We have a
stands.
stand.
That was standing about as long as this room, you put cars on and you just feed them on sideways so that the gas tank will be on the one side of it. Antifreeze oil and transmission fluid would be on the other side of it. And then they drain everything, go down the line and drain everything.
And didn't you say the containers would be on a concrete pad?
Yes, sir. Yeah, everything, where we hold all the oil and antifreeze and gasoline is all on the concrete pad. And then the truck backs in there pumps everything out.
Well, I would imagine
Steel container.
today's standards, y'all are pretty well governed closely by the EPA.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Isn't there an inspection schedule? Don't they come out at a certain?
Yes, so every 6 months, we take water samples. Our current property has one outfall, which we'd have to have DEQ come out. They came out and inspected, we walked the entire property, with DEQ and the creeks and everything, to identify our outfalls and potential hazards. And then to kind of work with them to figure out the best plan, which is when we come up with our SWIP. So they'll come out, if we can get this property, they'll come out with me again, we'll identify the outfalls, which is, where I take my water samples from. And then I work with a company, and they send me my water sample kit. We just did one in January, we'll do another one in the summer. And we take a sample out of every outfall, which, like I said, this current property, we only have one. This one, there may be more, and we'll just have to take it from each outfall. And once we do so, we send it off to the lab and they give us our results, which we then give to DEQ. And if they view any potential hazards, obviously they take their steps, whether that's shutting you down or cleanup or whatever it may be. We've been well under all the maximum levels. And the current property we're at was a junkyard prior to. Was a salvage yard that we purchased and operate out of. So if there was anything from before, that plays into what we do too. So we have to be careful about cleanup, but we haven't had any issues. We have snow kits that we keep around in case there is an issue, like oil sprays and that's a big container. We have pads that soak up just oil, pads that soak up just gasoline. There's all kinds of things in case of an accident, for cleanup, so. I think that.
What about under the crusher? I'm sure when the crusher you squeeze out,
It's got an oil drain in it.
It's contained and then it has a.
And it's got a 400-gallon oil tank that holds it and you pump that out. But everything that we do, we take the motors out before we crush the cars.
Correct.
So there's that crusher might have a couple of dribbles in it, mainly rainwater in it, and it would have pumped out.
But yes, the radiators are removed. Obviously that's all drained, they're removed, the motors are removed. So when it's crushed, I mean, like you said, it is a show.
Yeah.
At that point.
Residue and post like that.
It's right, I mean, there's always gonna be a little residue if it rains or something, but like
But you're saying it's contained. The key is.
The key is it's
catch it on your-
Yeah,
yes.
and then oil catch is a big deal because a lot of everything newer has it. The older ones is just wherever it runs in the crusher, it runs in the crusher.
How loud is the crusher?
How what?
Loud.
The engine on it is just a small John Deere motor. And it's got a muffler and a stack and, maybe like a tractor.
What about hydraulics?
The hydraulics don't make a ton of noise. It's just the I guess the pump itself is the one that's flying real bad, and then the cylinders, but it's not,
You don't know how many decibels?
no, it's not.
I was gonna say, when I'm in the office, I can't hear them crushing cars. I have to go around the building.
You have to wear protection when you run it?
No,
So it's not that.
no, somebody can, it's designed that somebody can run it from the control box at the engine.
Okay.
And they can operate the leverage rack and operate it with in the motor.
I think Robert had.
Which lots are you got the cul-de-sac?
All of them.
Yeah, all the ones that say they're part of lot 7. So this one, this one, this one,
I know, I was like,
that. Because that one is mainly taken up all by the stormwater
Right,
ponds. So yeah, this, right, it would be this little L shape.
And how many acres would that be?
Let me squint my eyeballs. 3 and some change, 3 and some
but
change,
this is-
2 and some change, so 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Access.
All encompassing at 17, but probably 13 usable.
as far as verbiage and drains and roads.
That was cut off, this is half.
Now, with that being the available amount of land,
This dotted line, because that's optional.
which is approximately 17 acres, but 15 acres usable, would that be
17-ish.
possible as far as a purchase?
I think the first, if I'm not mistaken, it's hard to see. The top 2 ones are 3 acres and the other one is almost 3 acres. So that would make it 9. So that would make it about 9 acres.
But then the bottom part is part of lot 7 too,
Right.
and that's 4.74 and 4.17, I think. So I don't know if y'all are just interested in those top 3.
Well, see, I guess I was confused if there was a water basin there where the county would keep that as their property and only sell the top 3 lots. I don't know how that would work.
That's what the engineers are for. That's what.
Yeah, well, you're right, yeah.
But yes, we would be ready to purchase. That was your question about purchasing all of them
Okay.
together. Yes, we would be ready to do that.
And with that being said, like we were saying, at the top of that would be where the cul-de-sac would be rather than running the road in the cul-de-sac, water and sewer all the way
Okay.
to this middle of it,
So you'd move it up about basically up 2 lots.
to the corner right there.
Right there.
If I could access into the top of that lot.
Okay.
Is anyone?
But I would assume that because of type of, I've always dealt with, I'm in a M2 type business. I've always had to deal with it. But this type of business, you would have it proper, like fencing, landscaping, bushes or whatnot.
Yeah, it would be a privacy fence.
Okay.
And even the gate coming in and out of the place would be covered, be privacy as well.
I'm gonna assume that probably from my experience that today, you're probably as closely guarded by the DEQ and all as the local landfill is.
Right.
And you gotta keep your stuff straight.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When we first started it, I think we had to give them a water sample. Was it every month or every 2 months, I believe? And then
Right.
now they let us to, twice a year.
Right, because it was a current salvage yard, just because of waste that could have been left over from before.
So financially, you're saying that it sounds like that you're able to come in and establish a business that would have this many facets to it. Crushing, parts removal, resale, to get something started like this.
Mhm.
Did you find out if it requires special?
It does require special.
Which part?
The retail.
A salvage yard is a special exception. Salvage and junk
To
yard.
sell the parts,
The wholesale,
Do it at all. You
to
need
do it at all.
you need a special permit. That's it.
well, not
That's better
just,
than
no,
allowed.
not, no. The wholesale operation is a permitted use, so you don't need the special exception to do that. The special exception would be for the salvage slash junkyard. So you don't need any kind of permit to do anything in M2 that's permitted by right. You can just do it. It's just the things that are special exception, and for y'all, the only thing that falls under the special exception would be salvage and junkyard.
Possibly, you're saying.
We've also additional land there. It'd be a good place for the slaughterhouse.
What was the number?
David was still here then. That's
David, yeah.
18, maybe 15,
I think
18.
you said, well, I was thinking 12 or 15.
12.5 is one number that. he gave
Okay.
me,
That's a
and then
number
there
you
was-
always throw around, but
We always do
that
that.
doesn't include road. That's just a lot, what we have in the lot as of today.
The
And that's
updated
what we
number
had to
gave me
offer
was
at the time.
17.
This is the number. We haven't factored in anything for any additional construction or something like that. What we've done in the past is we've sold things based on the amount of money we had in it. We didn't want to compete with developers, but we wanted to get our money back.
Right.
So,
But
Right.
I agree with that theory.
So who would be responsible for the road?
I guess the Board of Supervisors, the EDA, and the prospects would talk about that, and after having found out how much money we're going to have to spend on it, and see what type of inducement that anybody might be willing to do in order of subsidizing road construction to get you in there.
I mean, roughly looking at the map, you're looking at half the length of the road as than originally planned. I know that doesn't mean the cost dropped by half exactly, but it should be significantly less.
So I guess my question, if, assuming all the minor details are gonna be worked out, when are y'all ready to move forward?
I mean, if we, I guess if, like Taylor said, we have to come to an agreement of, I guess, if the road, if we can say we'll just go to that first lot with the road, then what would that cost? And I guess, like you said, if the county will be willing to pay for the road to go into that, you know, I know Taylor told me that I would be responsible for the water and sewer coming from the road onto my property.
Right.
And I would have to, you know, figure out all that as well, but if that was, you know, something I'd be willing to move in the next couple of months.
Obviously now we know special permit about.
Wonderful.
So-
Oh, yeah.
Right, so once. that's-
Assuming that all these minor details are gonna be ironed out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The second one also contingent upon
Upon the.
Right.
Okay.
successful completion of the special exception.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you have in the next few months, obviously we have to get our permits from DEQ as well and get them, send them the information on the lots.
Mhm. And see, they tell us, DEQ, when we send them that, they tell us where we can work on the property.
Right, they'll tell us. where
They
we
don't-
can put it.
They say, well, you need how much space to work in doing this part of it, where you're gonna put a building. And they tell us, you know, going off the
We have
lots.
to give them down to the square footage.
Yeah, so they're very regulated on that.
Which for the county, I think is a good thing. Honestly. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's good protection for us, the amount of regulation that
Absolutely, yeah,
you're
because
going.
I can, you know, I can tell you all I want, you know, oh, I do this and I do that, but they, you know, they really hold it to a higher standard.
Yeah, and I think some of these things that you've talked about, like the fence, walls, et cetera, I think we can discuss putting that as part of the agreement as well.
We
That
have
is
that-
And getting a little bit more specific around it. also.
6 feet all the way around is required. Now, it doesn't, it says it can be landscaping, as long as it's like a shrub that completely covers, brick, wood, chain link with slats in it, it really does have to be 6 feet all the way around.
I think that's why I'm wanting it a little more specific. I mean, you're not gonna want shrubs based on what you said about security anyway, but I think it's good for everyone to be on the exact same page beforehand and
And
make
like
sure
you
it's
said,
agreeable.
we're not a landfill, so the noise, I know the noise of the crusher would be kind of the only thing that jumps out right now, but you know, noise isn't a concern coming from us as far as the shrubbery or berms go, but yes, that'll go in the contract kind of saying that we'll have the fencing, which is what we have with the county we're currently at.
What type of building are you talking about putting up? Is it gonna be metal, center block?
Stone, steel building, and then have an office and part of one of the corners as the very front of it, and then be able to and keep everything that I can indoors. As far as, the batteries, the oil, everything, keep it all indoors, lock it up, have it all contained.
How big do you see the building being?
I don't know. I would probably do something like a 60 by 80 building. To be able to use that, I think that would probably be sufficient. And as far as if you're talking about the noise and stuff, the only piece of equipment we use is a wheel loader, an excavator, and then that crusher.
Yeah, the crusher would probably be the lowest.
Yeah, and that crusher might run 2 hours of the day. It's not a constant.
Right, yeah.
It's not running.
And where's your hours going to be?
Okay, so you
Monday through Friday?
That's always.
That's 5 hours.
2 days to 5.
Well, you already got a cement plant that uses the same type of equipment.
I'm just wondering how long we want
It's like,
to continue this.
Yeah.
and then you got, right next door, you got a Superior Walls that's using that kind of equipment, plus they got trucks coming in and out.
Right.
This is
Seems like a good use.
if we're M1, M2, we need to have business that fall in that category, because it's hell to go anywhere else. Excuse my French.
Exactly right.
So what do you, I guess this is more of a Taylor Holly question. What do we really need from today? I mean,
On my end, they can't do anything until they know for sure what site they're gonna be at, because they have the special exception permit is site specific. So I guess y'all are gonna have to come to some decisions first before they can apply with me, so they'll know if this site will work for them.
but is it a little bit of chicken and egg? I mean, you also need to, they need to know from, or we need to know from them which ones they want to purchase. I mean, it looks like there's some variability on this bottom part of the L down here.
Well, I think,
Go ahead.
I think from the EDA's point of view, we discussed, I know personally, I think this is a very doable and profitable for everybody or concerned. And I think with our okay to move forward, then that would turn it back over to Taylor and these fine folks to discuss these details that we brought out, see if we can narrow those out. But
That's kind of what I was thinking too, Luther. It's like support for moving forward. Now,
yeah, so I'll entertain a motion that we move forward with this project.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead on a board to get the details and work out the details. That's what I need to say. Let's go forward with it.
I don't think you need a motion.
I don't.
I don't really
Okay.
think you need a motion. What-
Well, we don't, as long as we're in consensus,
About them.
everybody agrees.
What I've heard,
well, one did, one's.
what I've heard is there's no objection amongst anybody from the Board of Supervisors or the EDA to citing an operation like's been described in Amelia in an M2 zone. That pretty well, I didn't pick up any vibrations that this was going to be a real issue. So there's no reason not to continue discussions.
Yeah, I agree with Taylor.
And you'll have the opportunity for public hearing because of the special exception permits. Yeah. Not that I anticipate a problem either, I'm just saying the opportunity will be presented.
I would like to ask, how important is a wooded buffer to you? If you went in there would you leave 50 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet or something of that pine plantation or?
You
What is
mean
it?
surrounding the property or inside? I mean, I would probably leave, yeah, 50 feet of it for sure. If, I mean, obviously you have to access, some of the front and the side or however, but, yeah.
But that is important to you?
I mean, I'd assume, leave it just because that's, the fence, you can still see over top of the fence, but
Yeah.
trees bordering it, that would probably help with the noise you were asking about. And
I'm not saying the noise is a problem.
right,
I want to understand what it is.
And what I'm hearing you say is, you're not saying that trees are important to you as much as you're going, sounds like a good idea. So
right.
you're willing.
Yeah.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, I would probably.
Well, that would work two ways. People
Yeah.
couldn't see into your operation as well, and that buffers sound too, along with the fencing. So, yeah, that would be beneficial probably all around,
Mhm.
as long as y'all have no objection to that.
Yeah. But that wouldn't be a problem at all.
So my personal statement I want to make, and I don't represent the whole board, just myself, is you're willingly accepting a 5 to 10 job business to go in when you just turned down a 25 job, which I don't see the distinction between the two. I think they're equally acceptable for that part of the industrial park. Just my feeling.
Okay. Well, he was saying that in the future, the reason I asked that question earlier, you anticipate more employees as you grow.
Yeah.
And that's pretty well with any business when they first get started. They don't need as many employees as they're going to eventually hope to hire.
Well, that's my reason for, in many ways, that I think you really need to consider how much this land that you want, whether it's just these top 3 here or it's the bottom one. I see two sides of it. Number one, you want to make sure you have enough land to be able to expand in a way that will be beneficial and create jobs. The other side of it is, if you don't practically expect that you will end up needing to use that land, then it's not in the county's best interest to sell it, because then that prevents someone else from being able to buy it,
Right.
where we could have jobs created. So I think what's really important is, as you go through this process with Holly and team, is really coming up with a plan for the land, not just today, but, I don't think it's a guaranteed plan, but getting a pretty good idea of, are you going to need that land or not in the foreseeable future? While there's an advantage for us getting some cash back immediately, the point of the EDA isn't the money exchange, it's the job growth, to Luther's point.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't want to lock up land and then not end up.
And give it away.
The whole road discussion has to happen too before we can agree on a price. I mean, how much of the road construction costs are you gonna provide or expect them to cover? We need to know all that before
Well,
we
that's-
accept an offer.
But
I think that's what they were going to discuss later in the week.
that's what I heard too, and then
And get those
and
details.
bring it back, because there's been, without a motion, which I think is actually a good plan, Taylor's, you're just saying there's support here for moving forward with the discussions and specifics. And there's a lot of details, frankly, still to work out, although none are sounding insurmountable. It does need to be worked out. That is definitely one of them, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But you all seem to know your stuff, so I'm encouraged.
What we're working, the lot I'm working at now is right at 4 acres. And some days it's all I can do to get everything in it. And then some days, I don't, we can move around in it. But that's why I say I would buy more than that,
And as far as the growth now, obviously our growth is stunted based on the size of our current lot.
Yeah.
And the county that we're in, as far as hiring employees, that's another issue, is we cannot, like finding somebody down there to work is stunting our growth as well. So when we move here, that's one of our big hopes, is hiring more employees so that we can start to expand. Because it's,
And that'll be good for both sides, the county and you guys. Well, I think we've resolved about all we can resolve at this point in time. Certainly appreciate y'all's presentation here. And I personally am looking forward to working out all the details and having y'all join our industrial development
over here,
and,
right here.
the continuation will be
Now, one of these,
y'all getting away with
Part of this.
getting with Taylor and Holly and working out the details.
the cement plant,
I don't see anything
Is that where that's looking?
that's insurmountable at all.
that's got 6 acres.
And you definitely have the support of the EDA, so.
That comes down,
Yes, thank you for.
that's where the road ended, and they,
Like I said, our contact.
Ended the road and it's right in this area,
information
isn't it?
on there, so if you have a specific
Okay.
question or
These lights are already.
something that we need to discuss.
So all we're talking about is these
further,
three
just let us know.
over here, minus the 4 lots, minus the.
But I wonder if this right here, being a storage,
Something a little more specific than just an introduction.
part of that could be usable, but not be built on.
We're in a good place right now based on this.
That's paper.
I assume.
They're gonna need more storage
You'd
space,
be open
or
to
processing space.
any board or EDA members touring your current
Upper
facility
side.
as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you can't do that.
That's what, yeah.
Water.
So that wouldn't be a problem.
When she come over here, she, you know.
I emailed them, at 10 o'clock saying I was probably not gonna make it.
See, like,
You ever saw one
Yeah,
of
that's
the pictures?
Definitely a drain mark right there.
Yeah.
You know, like I talk about that little.
Everybody's not used
Like, what is your current visit applying to? So also describing that it's not what you wanted to look like in the
Right.
future, but I think you can share that with Polly and she could distribute them.
Yeah. I
Just
can
give
get-
us a
And we can show you
visual.
the equipment, like the crusher, I mean, and they asked about size and different things, so. That's certainly something, or the containers we store, oil, gasoline.
Yeah, because clearly it's a business y'all know a lot about, but not one that sounds like many of us have a ton of experience with. So the pictures are helpful.
I can just use these.
Okay, I think, all right, we're finished for now and,
Thank
look
y'all.
forward to y'all continuing working out the details and discussion.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good
One
day.
further question, is this the address for your present location? Get to it.
Yeah, it's Stony.
Is that where your place is right there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, might have to make another road trip.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, y'all.
Y'all go into a closed session?
Well, I've got four things left here. Talk about the trip to North Carolina, to have some additional comments on that. I think that might be prospect specific, so it very well could be a closed session. I've got an update on the existing contract development for the IDA park between Food Lion and Old River. That relates to a discussion that Mr. Scott and I had about engineering of the last section, as well as I've got something about disposal of some public assets at the last session and in the last section. So I think actually all four of them are closed session material. If we could maybe go into closed session.
I think we probably can, but I need to be excused for about 3 minutes.
All right. So it looks like we're gonna take a 3-minute recess and then we'll be back.
Molly, leave it up, we have to have the motion.
Right. But we're,
Excuse me.
Right, I mean, don't you need the vote to go into closed session?
I didn't think she was recording. I looked over here and I didn't think the red dot was big enough, so I was wondering how,
It's not being recorded.
I was wondering
It says
how.
live though. Is it being streamed
Could be.
on YouTube?
That's Holly's.
Wait till Holly.
It does say live and connected. It could be.
The new method is a little different, I lost track.
What happened to Monty? She dropped off?
I think Holly said she sent her a message, so I think Holly knew she was dropping at a certain time.
You got plenty of time. We're still waiting on Holly to come back.
Well, I was,
Come on, jump on over there.
I was good.
Want to see you jump? All
That's
right.
beyond my capabilities.
No.
Is that recording as well as streaming?
No, just streaming.
Okay.
Well, when it streams-
So if you want Jackie to be able to hear, we're gonna have to stop the YouTube altogether.
Yeah, we definitely want all of our members to be here.